Welcome to the Salt Strong Fishing Podcast. Salt Strong has been helping saltwater anglers catch more fish in less time for 10 years and is now the largest and most trusted saltwater fishing community in America. If you want to catch more saltwater fish, then keep listening. If you want to speed up your fish catching results even faster, then join the private insider community at saltstrong.com. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
Hey guys, Joe Simons here. Before we get into this podcast, I need your help. Many of you know that we have kept this podcast ad-free from day one, even though we've been approached many times, numerous times from different companies to pay us to advertise all their stuff in the podcast. And we've told every one of them no, and we will continue to say no. But I need your help with something. For us to keep doing it, we need your help. And all it takes is you subscribing to this podcast if you haven't already. So make sure, regardless if you're an Apple or Stitcher or wherever, make sure that you have hit subscribe. And then 2, leave a review. It helps us out tremendously. It makes all of this well worth it. And when Apple sees this podcast getting reviews and more subscribes, it puts it in front of more people and helps it grow organically. So please take just 1 minute and leave an awesome 5-star review, hopefully, and give a big old subscribe, and I will be forever grateful. Here is the show. Hello, Salt Strong Nation. Joe Simons, like diamonds, back again with my main man, Captain Peter Deeks. What's up, buddy?
Hey, Joe. Hey, everybody. Excited to be here and excited about doing another podcast with y'all.
Well, we're talking about the number one best time of the day to go fishing. And the irony is it's not a time of the day because it's actually at nighttime. And for those that you haven't heard, been underneath a rock somewhere, we have been working on this night fishing mastery course with Deeks for quite some time. It started last year in 2024, and Peter had kind of mentioned to me, he's like, Joe, you guys have content on everything, because we were trying to come up with kind of the next big course. You know, Deeks has done quite a few of these mastery courses with us, and like that underwater bait forensics. I mean, that was just a phenomenal seller and just opened up so many people's eyes to what bait looks like, and the live bait mastery. And Deeks was like, how come you guys don't have one for like the best time to actually go fishing? I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, I'm talking about nighttime. And I was like, man, you're right. We don't. And I've been through the whole thing now personally. And it's like 40 videos. It's a lot. And you do just a great job of covering everything, right? Because some people think night fishing, it's just talking about docks. No, that was one of 5 things. We got docks for snook, docks for reds and trout. We got bridges, we got inlets, we got passes. I mean, we literally covered everything, and even flats, because you can catch a monster gator trout and redfish on the flats at night. And so kind of covered everything, which is why it took so long and it was so many different videos. So I want to get Peter on just to kind of talk about some of the lessons learned and mistakes you see make. And I guess before we get into that, talk about some of your own personal stories. I know you caught some of your bigger fish in your life at night, and you've been doing this since you were a kid.
Yeah, I think night fishing is the most overlooked time to fish. And it's a different type of fishing. You use different strategies. You fish different areas. The fish do different things at night. But it is the most effective way to catch bigger fish and numbers of fish. And not many people do it. So me personally, if there's a tournament that's going to allow me to fish at night for sea trout or snook or redfish, I'm going to fish at night. And chances are the winning fish, whoever catches that, is going to catch it at night. Fish are nocturnal feeders, especially the bigger ones. The smaller fish, maybe the sheephead and the sand perch and those type of fish, they become the bait at night, so they become less active. But the bigger fish, the predators, become most active at night. They're like sharks. And, people, you don't want to swim at night. And if you go shark fishing, chances are you go shark fishing at night. Well, same thing applies for the inshore species. And it doesn't matter if you fish for striped bass up in New Jersey or, fish for big sea trout over in Texas. Night fishing is just where it's at. And it can be a little comfortable, I think, because a lot of people think about night fishing at 3 o'clock in the morning. You're 2 hours from home. It's cold and windy. And that's not at all what it is. You can night fish right after it's dark, right there by your house or before work. You don't have to go for long. And it's very effective. And you just bring a headlight, you can tie your knots, and it just opens up a whole world that most people don't ever get to experience. And honestly, if you have a family, so I think if you're a mom and a dad and you want to take your kids out fishing and you want to catch some really good fish, if you go out at night and you fish under some dock lights, whether you've got snook, trout, or redfish in the area, those dock lights are going to have fish under them. The fish are going to be very aggressive and you're going to catch a lot of them. And it's just, a lot of people go out during the day and they struggle, especially people new to the sport, and go out at night and you're going to catch the fish. And another side note, the best recreational anglers. So as charter captain, which I think a lot of people kind of watch charter captain because you fish every day, post a lot of pictures on social media, gaining business and things like that. We fish during the day because it's easier. We can teach people. It's really hard at night to have a boatload of new people, take them out at night because it's easier during the daytime. But the best recreational anglers, people that are crushing big fish, especially with artificial fish at night. So if you look on your social media, Instagram, Facebook, you follow people, whether they're from, New York all the way around down to Florida. Most of those people that are diehard, they're fishing at night with artificials. And it's because that's when you're able to pull the big fish. And that's when the big fish get in the food mode. And just pretty interesting how, the guys that fish the big striped bass, a lot of those guys, the real big ones, they go out at night. The guys catching the big redfish in North Carolina, they're fishing at night off the beaches. Same thing down here, snook fishing, growing up, all the good snook fishermen I knew, they fished at night. And it's not because that's the only time you catch some snook. It's just that's when they're kind of stupid and they're really aggressive and they school up. So those are that's why you would want to fish at night, and not many people fish at night. So I was talking to Joe not too long ago. You guys went out and fished with Matt Snooker,
Yep.
and I've been fishing a bunch at night, doing this course and with just friends and clients and stuff. And the common denominator was we don't see anybody out there. You don't have to race anybody to the spot. There's tons of spots. There's lots of fish, and there's nobody else out there fishing. Look, it wasn't interesting. You go to this crowded area and you don't see anyone.
Yeah, we were at a pretty small ramp that normally on a Friday I couldn't even imagine on a weekend how busy and packed it would have been. And the only boat we saw was someone who was coming in, because sun was setting when we were leaving. And that was the only boat that we saw for hours. Literally was someone who was, launching their boat to take it home. And we were launching to put the boat in the water. And it was nice. It was peaceful. And obviously not every night's going to be perfect in terms of weather and the wind. But my last couple that we've gone, it's just been so nice. And, depending on the time of year, you might have to deal with bugs for a little while. But even then, usually if you're on the water, there's any wind. And once you get kind of past that witching hour, the bugs aren't as bad. And reflecting back, when I had I got 3 kids, but when they were really, really young and going to bed kind of early, and we'd go down to the condo near Boca Grande, and that was what I would do. Wife was worn out and the kids were all in bed, and it's still somewhat early, 9:30, 9:45. I'm like, man, I'm not that tired. And I would just walk down to some of those little bridges with a slam shady paddle tail and a 1/4 ounce jig head. And I caught snook almost every single time I went out there. And I would try those same bridges. And this is from shore, by the way, in the middle of the day. And I wouldn't catch diddly squat, because your point is right. They were feeding, there was shrimp popping. As long as there's current flow, it was a pretty epic bite. And I've been with you before. I'm not here recently, but I remember we filmed with Patrick Ray and Uncle Rico back in the day at some of those bridges for big redfish. And it was nuts. You just don't see anybody else. It was quite nice.
Yeah. I think the biggest roadblock for most people is if you haven't done much night fishing or any night fishing at all, where do you start? So I'm going to go back maybe like 15 or 20 years in my mind. So that's what I'm trying to teach when I try to put together these courses. Like when I was a good fisherman, what did I not know? What could I have taught myself that would have made me catch a lot of fish and just make my life so much better? And so that's kind of the person that I try to teach, my old self. And the one thing that I didn't know 20 years ago is where are fish at night? So where do you go? And so if you stop and think about it, so everybody listening to this podcast here, like where would you go at night? And there's a lot of unknowns. Are the fish in the same place that they are during the day? Like I know where there's a bunch of fish in the day. Are they there? How do I find them? It's dark out. And I think not knowing where the fish are, or even like what depth are the fish on the bottom or are they on the surface? What lures would I use? How do I retrieve it? There's so many unknowns. They're not, and since nobody fishes really at night, you don't have friends that are going to teach you, and you don't have people that are going to take you or people you can talk to. So it's kind of like the Wild West, the last frontier in fishing. It's not crowded, and there's a ton of fish, but there's a big learning curve. Like, how do we get there? And so the fun thing and easy thing with this course is it's really easy because at night, there are these great concentrators of fish. And the number one is light. Everybody's walked out on a restaurant dock light and seen all the fish in the dock light, or whether you live on the water or been a friend's house in the water, under a bridge. If there's light at night, fish are going to gravitate, they're going to be attracted to that. And so there's tons of lights, and all of those lights, for the most part, are going to attract a ton of fish. Mm-hmm. And we also have other things like bridges, which is a great concentrator of, bait fish and crabs, and it also concentrates the game fish. So where a bridge is, it's a narrow part between two big bodies of water. And when the water funnels through, whether out of the Gulf of Mexico or up and down the Indian River, it's gonna push that water through, and everything that's gonna migrate through is gonna go through that small channel, and that's gonna concentrate those fish. So we've got bridges, and then we've got inlet and passes, and not to mention what's often overlooked is fishing in the dark on the flat. Now, this is kind of more for maybe the people looking to catch bigger trophy fish, but fishing, there's some tricks to this, and we go and we talk about it in this course. Like when we fish in tournament, catch the biggest trout, oftentimes you fish at night, catch the biggest snook, you fish at night, and it's that the fish are just to kind of give away kind of a big secret here, but the fish move a little bit shallower than they would during the daytime. And they do that to follow the bait fish, but it's also to get away from the sharks and the dolphins to get very active at night. So porpoises are very active at night, and so are the sharks. But those big game fish, they move in shallower and they get really aggressive and they get really active. So we have to throw a big topwater plug or a big live bait. Those fish that are just almost impossible to catch, out there at night, you fish a little shallower, and you got a great shot at catching a true trophy. So those kind of four areas are great concentrators of fish. And in this course, we dig in and we show you what levels, what depth you want to fish, what bait you want to use. It's very simple, and it's right there. I mean, anyone can do it. And anybody that has nice fish can attest to it.
Yeah, and I remember Luke and I entered this tournament as an inshore tournament, and the rules did state that you could start that night, essentially at midnight. We're like, man, who's got time for that? Let's just, start at 4:35. That'll be plenty of time. And guess what? We actually did really, really well. Won a little bit of money, so got our money back. But the team that got first place, guess what time they started? At midnight or 12:02, and those big fish were all caught at night. And it was like, doggone. And it makes so much sense after going through your course. And I think, a lot of people do think it is different. The one thing that is different is light. But other than that, it's still find structure and find bait, right? It's the same stuff that we teach over and over again to find the 90-10 zone that might be spread out a little bit differently than maybe you see in the normal afternoon hours, but end of the day, bridges, right? Dock pilings, these inlets, and even the flats with potholes and stuff, they're all still forms of structure. And you're still going to go try to find areas that have bait. And Deeks talks about a couple different tricks to find bait pretty quickly and find out where the bait is and cover everything on all of those different types of structure or different types of places to fish. He also covers live bait and lures, because I know we've got a lot of listeners that like to use live bait. We got a lot that like to use lures. My personal opinion is you need to, get good at both, right? We call that the complete angler, to be able to do both live bait and lures, because there is a time and the place for both. But yeah, it's a fantastic course. On the safety side, I know you didn't spend too much time on that. There was just a couple little videos, because end of the day, people are getting the course to catch more fish at night. But let's talk about some of the safety stuff, because I do think that is important. To me, that's kind of the biggest risk, is if you get out there and, one, you don't have a little headlamp, or two, you haven't checked your navigation lights in a while and you don't have any running lights or anything. So talk about some of the safety things that you've learned over the years.
Yeah. So if you're in a boat, you want to definitely have your, Florida required, or wherever state you're fishing in. You want to have your state's required safety equipment. So you want your red and green bow light and your white stern light on your boat. If you're in a kayak, definitely bring some light with you. Whether it's a tall pole, you can put a white navy light on that, because if there's another boat out there, you definitely want to be seen. And then a headlamp, like a little headlight, you can buy them for like $10 at Walmart. Super handy, helps you tie knots. You can turn it off so that fish don't see it. Your knots right there with you. I like to carry a little lantern, like a little battery-powered lantern, that gives just kind of a glow instead of a big direct light. That's super helpful when you're hooking on your bait. You can leave it on. The fish don't see it if you have it down by your feet and you're in the cockpit of your boat or something like that. If you're running to and from spot, it doesn't hurt to wear a life jacket. I would recommend that, because, there are pilings. And in addition, if you are on a boat, you want a big spotlight from when you run from spot to spot, and to see those pilings. A lot of the channel markers, pilings, things like that, they're not lit, and they'll kind of surprise you. So you definitely want to be careful with that kind of stuff. But the safety equipment is pretty simple. Just you want to be lit. Light is important. And you want to watch for those navigational hazards. If you're wading, be mindful that the sharks are a little bit more active at night. Also, like alligators, if you're back up in the brackish areas, you don't have too many alligators in salt water, but it's pretty common sense. I think most people are aware of that. But you'll definitely see a ton more life at night. The wildlife and the fish life and everything's pretty active. So you just want to be kind of mindful of the wildlife and things like that.
Have you ever done the bow fishing?
Yeah, I used to guide a lot of bow fishing trips, mostly in freshwater, but some saltwater.
Yeah, it reminds me of that. The first time I went bow fishing, I was blown away with how much life is out there when you're going super slow with those lights lit up. All the water. It's crazy how many different species and how much fish you see at night.
You do, and they're not afraid of you. They let the boat get much closer.
Oh yeah.
I found my best trout spot years ago. I was gigging for sheepshead and flounder and bow fishing, and I went back in this area that I fished frequently, and I knew there's good fish in there. You'd see some in the daytime, but not many. But there was just piles of giant sea trout and some big snook, but piles of them, because they would let the water was kind of dirty in this area, and they would let the boat get really close to them. And they were just really shallow, and there were so many fish, big giant trout. And I would go back in the daytime and I would catch them after I found that they were there, but I would never see them, not many of them in the daytime, because they would never let the boat get close enough to them to be able to see them. But at night, they let you get right there. And we got a lot of those fish, especially the nighttime tournaments. We go fish that area at night. And you have to get out there to see it. But once you see it, like when you went boat fishing, it's just a different world than during the daytime, and everything is much more active.
Agreed. Did you find that there was a better tide for the night fishing, or did it depend on the type of area you were fishing?
Totally depends, just like daytime, on the area that you're fishing. Inlets, for instance, if you're there's different areas that you want to fish in the inlets or path based on the direction of the tide, but you can easily catch the fish on both tides. On the flat, the fish are going to get very shallow, and so you want to kind of follow that. It's real easy at night. You can hear and see the bait fish, so the big mullet and the needlefish, all that bait is all that activity. You just want to follow that. So obviously, if you have a really low tide or falling tide, those fish are going to be moving out away from the bank or the sandbars, and they're going to be moving up as the tide comes up. So there's definitely not one that you could forecast that's going to be better than another. But it definitely moves the fish into different areas, and we talk about that in this course. But it's most affected, I would say, in the inlets and passes on where the fish are located.
And what about having like a full moon? Obviously it's nice because you don't have to have you don't have to rely on your headlamp as much to tie knots. I mean, you get a really bright moon, you can sit there and tie your knots, and unless you're Mad Snooker, you can tie a blindfold. That guy impressed the heck out of me. But did you ever have any more or less success on certain moon phases?
You know, the full moon activates a lot of fish. In the fall time, it really activates the big giant redfish. And the fall winter time, it activates the black drum. The springtime, it activates the sea trout. So you're going to see a massive increase in activity. Especially, it encourages spawning and schooling and moving. It's like, hey, it's time to do something. And so you're going to see a lot more activity, a lot more feeding. And so the moon does create more activity. But if you're fishing the right areas, I wouldn't plan my trips around a full moon, because you're going to catch them regardless.
Cool.
But it's definitely nice. A clear day with a clear night with a full moon is very enjoyable. Sometimes it's like daytime out there. You don't need a light at all.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, dude, when we fished with Mad Snooker, I forgot to tell you that he wasn't using a headlamp to tie knots or anything, because we had a couple break off, and he's like, I'll do it. And like, I was like, you need a light? And he's like, no, I can do this. And he doesn't even look down. He's done it so many times at night. He doesn't even look at his fingers when he's tying the knots. I was blown away.
He's a mad knotter.
Yeah, that was crazy. Most of us are sitting here struggling, having to put our readers on and stuff to tie knots, and he's just doing it blindfolded. What were some other mistakes? Maybe rigging mistakes. I noticed in your videos you talked a lot about maybe going bigger in some of these, because most of the time you were fishing around structures. This was not the time to go with 7 or 8 pound braid. Yeah, this was maybe a little bit the one time you might want to go a little bit heavier. Any other, kind of mistakes that you see a lot of people make at night?
Well, I think the biggest mistake people make at night, and also during the day, but really especially at night, is not where are the fish, but where are the fish in the water? Let me clarify that. Let's say
where are the fish in the water?
You're fishing a shoreline that has a deep channel. Are the fish on the surface or are they on the bottom? Are they mid-water column? Are they wanting cut bait? Are they wanting live bait? And there's a million questions. And at night you can't really see. So you're kind of going off of a lot of guessing. And I know I made that mistake for years. And I consider myself a pretty good fisherman, at least during the day. And I would fish at night. And I would throw, let's say I'd fish a pass for snook, and I'd throw a lipped plug because I thought the fish were just on the surface feeding, but they were on the bottom, and my plug didn't get down deep enough to where the fish were, or vice versa. And so I think that's the biggest mistake. And we cover that in the course, and that's like, it's very easy to kind of, at night, the fish are, depending on if they're light, under lights or under, on the shallow pods or in the passes, universally, regardless of the species, they're all kind of holding the same patterns at night. And they're roaming around and they're feeding. So you don't have to chase the fish that much. You can kind of wait for the fish to come to you or just do a couple extra casts. So I think a lot of people at night, they're fishing where the fish aren't, even though they're on the fish, if that makes sense. So either their bait's too high or too low in the water column, even though they're on the fish, or they have the wrong kind of lures or bait. Because at night it's different. Easy, but it's different. And then another mistake is, like you said, you're fishing structure, heavy current. Because there's a lot of people that, so like myself, I want to catch the bigger fish. And so at night, you can beef up your tackle. You don't have to go super ultralight. Now, you want it to be fun. So you don't have to jump up to 6,000, but you can use heavier leader and you can use bigger hooks. And the fish are much more aggressive. They're feeding, and you don't have to be as wary. Whereas you do in the daytime, you just got to really drop back on your leader. You can't fish that close to the structure. You got to fish lighter tackle, and it causes you to catch less fish or have more breakoffs.
Yeah, it's good. When Luke and I went out here recently, we were fishing a dock light, and I was using live shrimp, no weight, just free lining that thing out there because there was snook, and you can even see trout were everywhere. It was like one of those just like perfect dock lights, and it was just loaded. And Luke was using, Luke's anti-live bait if he can. And so he's using the Prawn Junior on a Haas Helix weighted jig and casting it up there and letting it sit there for a little bit and then just popping off the bottom. So to reiterate, Luke's on the bottom, I'm on the top, right? I can literally see my shrimp just kind of coasting off the top, and we're both catching fish. But over and over again, Luke was catching the bigger fish. So essentially these bigger fish, you couldn't see them. You could see all the ones up the top that were just in the feeding mode. These bigger ones were kind of down around that shadow line and down at the bottom. And Luke caught, I'm talking the entire night. It wasn't just once. The bigger fish on that prawn, I probably caught more. The live shrimp, it was, the second it hit the water, essentially was just getting crushed. But Luke definitely caught the biggest fish, and they were all in places you couldn't see them, which was a learning lesson for us that day. Because if we had only been using live shrimp, we never would have even known that there's some bigger fish down at the bottom.
Yeah, you have to change the topic to talk about what you just mentioned. And how funny is it that, you just described pulling up to a dock light, which there's many dock lights, and they all have all these fish that you're describing. And there's snook and trout and redfish and all these fish, right? You can visually see them, and both of you all are catching them fish. If you describe that about let's say in the back of Tampa Bay, a mangrove point or shoreline that had everything you described, and you talked about all the fish you caught off of it, you dropped a pin there, everybody would be there tomorrow, right? If everybody would be like, oh my goodness, this is the hottest spot. How easy, we can go to an area and we can catch a dozen snook or 20 snook in one spot, and redfish and trout, throwing a Prawn Junior. But at night, you can do it. And there's regardless of where you live, there's many, 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 many spots like this. And yet people aren't out there. You can, right now, tonight, we can go fish.
Good point. Yep.
We can go to Tampa Bay tonight, or over here in Cocoa Beach tonight, and we could just idle in our boat, find a dock light, and catch a pile of fish. And there's nobody out there. And then there'll be a ton of people fishing the next day catching nothing. It's just, that's why it's it's a lot of unknown, because I think people lack the motivation. If you don't know, you're not going to go. And so I just think it's a really cool opportunity for everyone from a beginner to an experienced angler to go out there and really be successful and also have a really good time. And so that's why this was really a special and fun course to make, because I think a lot of people have some really great trips after they pick up some information. And you may only learn just a little bit, but it's going to teach you enough to maybe kind of break that barrier and help you catch a lot of fish.
Yep. No, I love that. That's a great analogy. And I would say if the fear is, I don't have a boat, there's plenty in here on catching from the bridges and inlets and passes, et cetera, on foot, kayak, et cetera. And if the fear is, hey, I do have a boat, but I'm not comfortable, running it at night, I will say the last couple of times that we've been night fishing, we never even got up on a plane. You can go slow. And the beauty of it is you have a whole lot more flexibility to pick where you're going to put your boat in, assuming you're launching it. And you can get really close to some areas where have some lights, or maybe there's a bridge with lights. And we literally just, cruised. We were just going idle speed and enjoying the evening, and never even had to get up on a plane. So just know that there are countless opportunities to do it. I mean, like Peter said, we passed by tons of lights that had them. We were just, we were kind of just picking and choosing the ones that looked like they had the most, because you could see them on all the lights that we went by. So, pumped for you guys to get the course. Of course, if you're a VIP or a lifetime insider member, you'll automatically get it for free. Otherwise, we'll give our insider members an opportunity to get it at a steep discount, and it's going live into the end of the month for a couple days on a special deal, and it'll go back up to normal price. So pumped for you guys to see Night Fishing Mastery with the Captain Peter Deeks. And like all of them, it'll be interactive, so you can ask questions. And there's been many where we've gone back out and filmed a couple other videos to add on to it. So if there's something that you guys see in there that you'd love to be added, let us know. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, for sure. And regardless of where you live, I mean, even if you live in a different country, these night fishing strategies that we cover, it applies to just about every species of fish. And so I remember we went on vacation down in where were we? We were in Little King Island, and I was just really struggling to catch fish. I was kind of a younger kid, and they had a dock out back, and I never caught really anything during the daytime. But at night, I would go out on this dock at that dock light, and we caught all these giant four-side jacks and snappers and all this stuff, and the whole thing just came to life. And I was really just using the same tactics that I used back home. And so I feel like, and I've experienced that, regardless of where you live and the species you fish for, like learning these different techniques and strategies and applying it towards the species that you fish for can really open up the doors to some really cool catches.
Yep. Completely agree, dude. Completely agree. So stay tuned. It is coming here very shortly. And Deeks, we need to get out and fish again soon, man. Been too long.
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, comment down below, depending on where you're listening to this, and be on the lookout for Night Fishing Mastery coming to saltstrong.com very soon. Otherwise, we'll talk to you on the next episode. Peace. We out.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Jeff.
Want more fishing tips, shortcuts, and tools so you can catch more fish per trip? Then head over to saltstrong.com now and join the movement. Tight lines, and thanks for listening.